Ahsan Mashkoor is the CEO and co-founder of C-Square, an IT consultancy firm with offices in Pakistan, UAE, and Bahrain. He is also the CEO of AI systems company as well as his new ventures Sablo and recently founded Fantastic Tea. Ahsan is also a founder of Seed Pakistan, an NGO solely focused on educating children in Karachi. At present, Seed operates 7 schools in Sindh, Karachi, and educates 3,000 children from underprivileged backgrounds. Most recently, Ahsan was selected as the chairman, FPCCI Committee of Science, Technology, and Education, which is a proof of his dedication for Pakistan.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Am I allowed to start now? Yes. Perfect. Can you see the presentation? Screen share.
You have the share screen, like you're the co-host.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Now it's come. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cedar, for this lovely event, CSTEC. And obviously, it's the session is on rise of machines, and that's how I think the future is, and the future for our kids, actually. So I'm the CEO for C-Square, as I was introduced. I also work on the National Security Advisory Team on emerging technology. We also work on the Kashmir Committee for Cultural, to fight cultural, technological disadvantages that we as a nation face. So just let me begin by a typical problem. We have seen classroom settings, and I do feel that a lot of schools have evolved, and they have actually improved, and they have introduced various technical skill sets at some schools. But the problem is that we're preparing our kids for the 21st century with, obviously, teachers are also evolving their training, and they're also trying to sort of keep up to the technology evolution. But obviously the teachers, we need to understand, are trained and prepared for the 20th century, and the classroom settings are typically of the 19th century. So obviously things are changing rapidly. Human dependency is eliminating or is reducing phenomenally. And I'll get to specific points where I'll elaborate on those areas. So here is the future of modern civilization. So there's a big saying, or there's a quote, in fact, by Bill Gates, and he says, and that's a big, that's something very big to say. He says, provide a subsidy to human beings, because humans in the future will not be much part of the workforce, because obviously robots will take over. And saying to tax robots. Now that's very interesting, right? Because when we say future workforce will be robots, that is already the case today. So, I mean, you have there's a Da Vinci, and even in Pakistan, for example, I think it's called Da Vinci. It's a robotic surgery machine, which is in Karachi. Does not have any dependency on doctors. Only one person has to operate it. There are autonomous vehicles, and there's a lot of evolution in the technology area. I mean, primarily, if a drone is flown by a remote control, and a commercial plane, which used to have 2 pilots, 2 co-pilots earlier back in the days, now has 1 pilot and 1 co-pilot, and that's also actually not needed today. So obviously the rules and regulations don't allow that, but today, just like a drone can be flown by just putting coordinates from X to Y, a plane can be flown, because obviously, as you know, that a pilot only operates a plane while takeoff and landing, and other than that, they're just sort of autopilot. So moving forward, understanding the technology evolution, right? So there is a marginal cost of change, which cost of change is actually the adaptation of that technology, and the cost of social behavior is actually the adaptation of that technology. And the more the adaptation is, the cost of change of that technology reduces. So if you see, this is a cycle from life to computers, when computers were invented, and so this is happening now, and we are obviously adapting more and more technology on a daily basis. I mean, I used to actually tell my kids that foreign language used to be a barrier. It will not be a barrier in the future because obviously real-time translations and a lot of things are available today in the market. But however, having said that, knowing a computer language will be the biggest barrier in the future for kids to be fitting into the society and the entire ecosystem. Right. I can give you an example on this. We recently, through my AI company, there is a specific project, shooting range automation. Marginal cost of change is economies of effort. Now, for example, if you see, take a case of the military, for example, they have a lot of manpower, but they have a lot of manual processes. Right now, technology, adoption of technology can really improve, reduce the efforts, right, and which means reducing the costs. And also when AI is there, the adoption of technology is quick. It's very fast because it's least human dependent. And when you say it's least human dependent, I mean that it is self-learning. Machine learning and AI are an area where it's the system is learning on its own, and it may and it will outperform humans eventually, or maybe has already. So this is democratization of technology, right? So if you see the first steam engine when it came in 1780s, but you see that when the engine came, the growth that was experienced was 100 years later, or till 100 years, by the end of the 100 years. And you see the railway system came into the telephone, automobile, and now the last stage, you see the big jump on the computers and internet. And now when we say internet, the next 100 years will be a huge economical sort of boom when AI comes into it, right? So AI is as a national security for any country. A country should take or adapt a niche area to learn AI, or to sort of a niche area specifically within artificial intelligence to be relevant within the ecosystem of the world superpowers, right? So AI is from a national security point of view, for an economic point of view, because otherwise, if we don't adapt AI, we will be irrelevant to the world. So that's how, I mean, it sounds pretty extreme, but I think that's how it is, to be honest. Moving forward, AI, as I said, will democratize digitization. Unlike the technologies, AI is self-learning, as I said, right? So there's iteration, there's self-iteration. So you teach so we create chatbots, right? So conversational chatbots is an example, is a very good example, where today, for example, businesses have call centers, right? Or they have digital engagement centers. Now they can have 100 agents sitting there and handling maybe thousands of calls, but is that practical, right? I mean, they will scale up, and now as you see that the millennials and the other generation are more comfortable in chatting as opposed to talking to people as well. So coming back to the chatbots in particular, now we have replaced in many cases where humans used to talk to customers, or so they don't need agents, they don't need humans. What we've done is we've built intent recognizable bots that are natural language understanding capable. So they're actually, there's zero bot detection. So you can't feel, because we're adding empathy onto the bot. Normally what happens is bots are very unintelligent, right? So using artificial intelligence, using the historical sort of conversation that have taken place by humans, you put that into the system, and the system starts from there. And if it learns something new, it will evolve, right? So, I mean, now conversations on your WhatsApp, and the future is the conversation economy, by the way. And obviously the more and more automation is coming in it, and obviously the marginal cost of change will reduce or will not exist with AI as well. Now, cost of education will go down the cost of education will go down. Why? Because there's augmented reality. Augmented reality is being adapted globally, mixed reality in the medical profession as well. these scenarios are there, even in when doctors are trained, augmented reality scenarios. We also actually, in the military, there's a very big use case where training of candidates and even sort of special forces which have operations that need to be conducted, they can actually pre-live the augmented reality scenario before they go into the operation. So, the relevance of AI is coming everywhere, to be honest. Sorry about that. And then obviously the adoption of AI in medical, or in in medical, is that there are certain obviously historical data available to you. For example, if I say maternity care or pregnancy, right? So obviously there are cases which have similarities. Now AI can actually identify those similarities, and it can also sort of help you identify the next best action to prevent or to sort of lower the risk, for example. So moving forward, data analytics and insights for students. This is very important. I personally feel that, right now in a lot of schools, we are not going for the deep analytics of students, right? If, for example, we understand that there is a student who performs very well throughout the year, right, throughout the semester, but he does not perform in his exams. And that is a trend. That is a common trend in a certain set of students. Now, you've identified that, and you can help him improve that. Similarly, I'll just draw the same comparison in another industry, which is, for example, training of military, right? If there's a shooter who's shooting on a target, he shoots 50 bullets and his accuracy 100% spot on, but as soon as he moves above 50, it declines, right? So there's a common trend. So once you implement tools and once you implement various technologies, you're able to actually collect data. And collecting data will help you identify where you can actually help those students. Another use case perhaps could be a common trend in between students being absent, right? So you can actually do a lot of insights, do a lot of forecast projections as well, and maybe also compare students to different classes, different peers, and having those insights will obviously help you communicate with the parents and tell them how to where to improve and what skills specifically to improve. Now, just another example, I think, we've seen a very big transformation in banking, I would say. Now, obviously, the banks are now looking to, first, there was a whole focus of opening more and more branches by the State Bank of Pakistan. And now the focus is maybe move on to more digital channels and more engagement, and sort of automate a lot of processes. There used to be the ATM. I remember back in the days, about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, my company, we made this kiosk. It was a machine made in Pakistan, which the purpose was to open a bank account in 1 minute and give the instrument to transact to the customer there and there. So you come onto the machine, you put your information, you do your biometric verification, you deposit cash into it, and voila, you have your ATM card, your bank account is open, personalized ATM card. Even in the US, perhaps, they don't have personalized ATM cards that they give you on day one. So technology is rapidly evolving. So I just explained call centers, right? Call centers, we do that. Majority banks in Pakistan, we provide them services, other industries as well. Now we see that there is a trend moving from voice calls onto more chat conversations. Now, how many people will you seat in your organization just to answer calls, or maybe answer common calls, right? Or even to eventually transact. So the first phase is where your chatbots can actually be your front line of defense, and they converse with the customer and they answer their questions rather than taking to a human. So these things are being used today, and I believe that our kids, my daughter, 10 years old, she's an avid airlift user, these guys have been born into this, right? Speech bots is another technology that is evolving, and obviously you can do speech-driven transactions. And, so a lot of things are happening. There used to be for security, there used to be the biometric, it evolved into the retina, and now you have voice biometrics as well. So the entire dynamics has changed. And I personally feel that, we need to equip our kids with the right skill set. I personally feel now when the kids go for their university sort of applications, and when they trying to sort of before there was always about grades or sports. But now it will be more than that. It'll be how many apps did you make? How much money did you make while sort of starting some business up? I mean, I think exposing our kids also to a certain, maybe inculcating entrepreneurship within schools by doing practical practical training on ground. Now, so this is where, obviously where we are, but the future is again evolving much more. The digital ontology, digital twin. Now, for example, let me give you an example where, so you have an organization, or you have a school, for example, right? You have a school, now you're running a school, you have students, you have teachers, you have admin staff, you have everything. Now imagine all the data that you have, you can practically create a digital twin of that data. Now that digital twin is actually I would say it's not the reality, but it's actually a copy paste of your existing. Now, over there at that digital twin, you can do a lot of interjection by seeing what if we do this, what if we add this to our students, or an extra class where people are weak. So when you do all of that and you make those decisions, you will be producing much better quality of students overall, because you will know each and every student what his strength is at a very granular level, and what his weakness is, and you can obviously help them. Obviously, the ML predictive modeling is there as well. You can run predictive models where you can actually see that with all of these students, if you give them more sort of practical exams or science introduction, how the students will become better in the future. So these are, some examples, and then I will specifically go to a few other use cases where technology again is destroying jobs. It's really destroying jobs, and it's building better jobs though, right? So and like for example, I'll give you an example of railway. In Pakistan Railway, we were doing this proof of concept where, obviously after that accident, that unfortunate event that happened, obviously the focus was how to prevent these accidents. So we came up with a solution, and the solution was very, it was very competitive in terms of whatever was available globally. And in this organization that we represent, we actually, our USP is made everything in Pakistan using AI. So we have obviously huge skill set in Pakistan of good qualified people. It's just about finding them and giving them the opportunity. So in railways, what we did was under the locomotive, we put a camera and we put some sensors around it on the locomotive. And now what we do is that the locomotives are running on the tracks. And when they run on the tracks, they actually identify what the track is, what a nut is, what a bolt is, what is the density of these stones within certain places. Are there any cracks? Now, all of this data from one locomotive multiplied by, I think they have about 200 plus locomotives on different tracks. Now, this data through these sensors and camera will be collected in one place, and then machine learning algorithms will be run to predict preventive maintenance on certain tracks, obviously to prevent accidents. And at the same time, to then track, we create more automation to track gang members, whether they've sort of fixed the problem. So, we're solving primarily 4 to 5 problems for them. Similarly, before I get to the smart city digital twin, there is another very interesting a proposition that we gave to the government, was helping them to predict national calamities. Right. So that's what I think the future is. I mean, earthquake, floods, wildfire, drought. And this is done by obviously machine learning models and some certain sensors that are collecting data on ground with respect to, temperature, heat, humidity, and all of those factors, and specific ML models. If we are able to predict an earthquake 45 seconds, we can actually trigger switching off the gas and the electricity to mitigate the loss, right? So smart digital twin. Now, this is another very interesting. So one of our team members, he's moved back from France. He was working for the French government, and he was the machine learning consultant. Now in France, what they did was, because obviously now you hear about smart grids and smart energy in Pakistan, but we really aren't smart. I think it's just more of a gimmick right now. But obviously the European side of the world is more, in the energy side of the business, they're more smart. So now using a digital twin, creating the entire digital twin of their energy grid system, they were able to actually, via machine learning models, they were able to actually predict how much energy is needed in which area during what hours, and how much is needed during the other areas and through other hours. So they optimized it, which reduced wastage and reduced energy and resource wastage, basically, primarily, right? So, so this is the use of technology, and this is the future. And I personally feel that, I mean, I see my kids coming back from school with a lot of books, and I do respect that, obviously, and that has to be done. We've gone through that system. But I just personally feel that COVID has actually, it was an unfortunate event, but the adaptation of technology because of that, because we were forced to do it, is fantastic. It's phenomenal. I think we should be now more comfortable with the use. Obviously, there has to be a balance. You can't be, more extreme that kids are glued to the tab, but it has to be a balance of both. Lastly, I would like to just, conclude on one specific area. We're working, so, obviously there are the, in the urban cities, in the private school network, and obviously we are the privileged class. I would say that our kids are they're getting the best teachers, the best schools. But, I personally feel that the talent still is in the masses in this country, who we have not given the opportunity, or we have not reached. So I've been actually working with the government to actually create IT parks. Now, let me just give you one example, and then what we're doing in future. In Gilgit, about a couple of months ago, a year ago, an IT park was established in Gilgit. There were 33 students there, and there were 9 companies in those 33 students, right? Within 3 months, there were 65 students. There were 13 companies. And one of the individuals there was working for a Mexican IT company as a chief technology officer, providing services to the clients in US, right? Now that's phenomenal, right? I mean, in Gilgit, I wouldn't even imagine that happening. Then 2 females graduated from that IT tech, gaining that technical skill, started their business, went into they moved out of the IT park, they got a building, commercial building, got about 40 employees, and they're, obviously providing inflow for our economy. Now, we are, just to again reiterate the point, we've got the approval to now establish 2 IT parks in Kashmir and 2 IT parks in Balochistan. I'm personally involved in this, and we're trying to get this special tax zone thing as well to it. And by doing this, specifically in Kashmir, what we're trying to do is create these IT parks, create co-working space, create incubation centers and hotel apartments, which then we will promote technology tourism to the international world. Because come to Kashmir, we have this space, teach our students as well, or because they're globally freelancers. West Indies actually is a big market. Caribbeans is a big market where they say all-inclusive vacation for 6 months, come to our country and sort of do your work from here. So why not us, right? I mean, we're trying to promote tourism as a country. So the government of Pakistan, the Prime Minister's office has approved it. We are working cohesively with the Kashmir government, and we'll be setting these things up. And, I would love to see actually foreigners coming into our country and seeing our beauty at the same time, sort of providing some knowledge sharing with our youth, which is obviously an asset or a liability, considering it's 60% of the population of this country. I guess that's the end of it. Thank you so much. I hope I was able to sort of explain well. If there are any questions, I'm available.
Thank you so much, Sir Ahsan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah. So, Sir Ahsan, I have a question.
Sure.
But before that, I have a comment. Your talk basically reminded me of Wall-E. I don't know if you have seen that movie or not.
Yeah.
So basically, my question was, so you spoke about how, the technology is basically going to take over pretty much everything in future. So considering the kind of education system that we have in Pakistan, what sort of skill sets should we like inculcating in our students, basically? Like we talk about these critical thinking skills and collaboration and all that, but like to you, based on your industry experience and everything, what do you think कि हम अपने students को क्या ऐसी चीजें सिखाएं जो कि वो future के लिए ready हो, basically?
Perfect. That's a great question, actually. And I think one of the answers is, सबसे पहला तो हमें inculcate करना पड़ेगा to all our students the ability to learn, the ability to self-learn. So yeah, I mean, we are sometimes as kids, even maybe me in my times, I was dependent on teachers and always sort of, not self-learning, but obviously jo mila wo kara. So actually by inculcating this behavior in the students and sort of, make sure that they self-learn and they sort of, so I think research, making kids do a lot of research of things. That's one thing I would really put my emphasis on. In addition to that, I think obviously a lot of schools have introduced STEM learning, which is great. Coding is something that I would really emphasize on. You can teach a kid from the age of 7 onwards how to code at different languages, right? So there's Java, there's C++, there's C#, there are many languages. So these are the few things that I would say. And then I think entrepreneurship. Every student should be encouraged at the age of maybe by class 9, he or she should have some small project or a business or something, cupcakes se leke, even it could be anything, right? And the use of obviously technology solving societal problems. So the discussion should be based on these things primarily. I mean, I personally feel that the big unicorn companies will be coming from this youth lot. They will be solving societal problems via technology. So a lot of technology for the positive use and a lot of research. Give them research on various things, because that is where the self-learning comes in. As much as, because I see as well, I mean, and you guys also have that information in the US. My sister's kids come and I see that they have literally less books, but all they do is they're told to do research. And that's phenomenal, because that will, if you research, you're a self-learner, and that would really help you in your future. Yeah, I guess that's the answer. That's the response I would give.